Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hope you're doing well. So I thought I'd archive here for us and discuss all of the statements Zionist Lord Loomer has said about Gaza. I think it's really important in order to add to the historical record what her stances were, what her personality is like, okay? And here she has import Gaza, become Gaza. So she doesn't really have that ethos of help the needy, right? So she means importing refugees, and then she's asserting that such refugees become problematic and then cause such civil strife to the point where there's some type of bombardment and there's going to be destruction, right? So if you look at, in a nutshell, how the Palestinians and the Zios can't get along because one side is oppressing the other, and then there's just a retaliation, there's a struggle for power. She's contending that if you allow needy people in from Gaza who are starving and are sick, that they will destabilize your nation, right? So she doesn't look at the other side of what her people have done, but rather only looks at the children in Gaza who are starving and say, if you bring them to your country, they will make it destabilized. So it's quite pernicious rhetoric, okay? Here she says, not to sound crass, but can the foreign policy experts please explain to me how importing a bunch of Muslims from Gaza into the U.S., whose kids will be like leeches and welfare, contributes anything positive for our country? So she has a lot of disdain for the poor. Now, there are lots of hadiths that tell us to feed the needy. We give sadaqah, we give charity, helping the orphan, the widow, you name it. It's a good deed, and we get expiations for our sins. And there's going to be times where you're an immigrant and you're not going to be automatically on the top of the food chain. But here you can see she really respects money, right? So if you need some welfare, you're a first-generation immigrant, she hates you. Tons of Italians and Irish, when they first came to America, they didn't have a lot of money, right? She would see them as leeches, right? And does she say anything about the white Christians who use welfare? Or who need Social Security or have disability or something like that? Very interesting, isn't it? She thinks you really only have value if you don't need to have some type of charity to survive, right? So this sort of disdain for the poor, she has wealth for now, and she really scoffs at those beneath her economically. And she thinks she can tell the future, saying they will never contribute anything positive. So if you're poor, she thinks you don't have any human value. You have zero potential. That's pretty cynical, pretty pessimistic. And she thinks if you're poor, you deserve to be deported. Very odd. Okay? And then she thinks you're not sick if you can sit on a plane for 22 hours. So that's pretty horrendous and heartless. But again, we're talking about someone here who enjoys suffering. And if you see my latest post on the community tab, you'll see how she gloats over Joe Biden suffering. She's really into that. Okay? And here she's upset that there's an organization that helps some people escape such horrible oppression. Right? She doesn't want anyone to be able to flee. Okay? And here she is quite strange, and she's combining the far left with Islam. It's really strange. And she's like, thinks that Muslims are sympathizing with the trends, even though the Prophet, peace be upon him, cursed men who dress like women and women who dress like men. She doesn't really care about facts. She's got to use that really tense rhetoric, okay? And here, she's really upset about these refugees, right? So look at these happy little kids. She's like, oh no, they gotta get out of here. Pretty strange. You get to see very fast how America last, the Gaza first crowd really is when chain migration comes up. They all are silent today. Meanwhile, it took a dirty blank like me to expose the Palestinian, she says, invasion of our country. It's fascinating how these people call everything an invasion. It should be a meme at this point. You know, the percentage of Palestinians in America is not super high. But she really enjoys to be like, oh, if you like little kids escaping a war zone, you're America last. Here you can see how she's really upset that there's people who want to give charity, right? So here is taking up special collection next week. So she doesn't like that the Catholics are caring about starving kids. She calls it woke propaganda, right? And she really wants her followers to go after them. Here she says, I hope they end the visas altogether. Nobody from Gaza should be allowed to come to the U.S. while this war is ongoing. It's a national security threat. Think about that. She thinks that helpless little children, women and babies, old grandpas, who some have lost limbs and others, that they shouldn't come here and be able to live. Odd. Because it's real is its own nation, and America is its own nation. It's peculiar, isn't it? Why should needy children not be allowed to have refuge in America because her country that she loves is having problems with a political faction over there? And her people are really escalating cruelty over there. How is that a threat to Americans? It isn't. But she really wants to punish people from escaping. She doesn't want there to be any life raft for them. Okay? And here she's really mad that the State Department has some employees who are helping people have a speedier process to get out of Gaza. Right? Here, she's always like, oh, Texas is getting Muslims. Oh, this is the end of the world. She's always calling everything flooding, invasions. Okay? She has to use hyperbolic language. Everything's a threat. So, she's really unhinged. Very unhinged. And she calls also here, everyone's a jihadi, Everyone who doesn't want to be massacred and fights back is a jihadi. I bet you if her cat scratches her because she did something to it, she'll call it a jihadi. She's the type of person, I bet, who walks down the street, kicks a dog, and if the dog bites back, she goes, jihadi, jihadi. Here, just more, like she's just constantly obsessed. Okay. Here, she says, why is it the responsibility of the U.S. to accept Palestinian families in the plane load from Gaza? They have doctors in the Middle East. So see how she's like, well, listen, Christians, listen, atheists, listen, American Muslims, why do you care about children? You don't need to care about children. Now go give my country billions of dollars. Do it. Fund my country's war. But don't you dare care about those needy children. Oh. And then she makes it sound like no other country wants them. Chain migration. She says they are not dying. This is not an emergency. It's an abuse of the visa process. Statue of Liberty, anyone? Here. More. Here you can see some troubling news, though, about how Trump really has too close of a relationship with Looney Loomer. Here, now let's see how spicy she is. I don't care who this offends. Okay, then don't get mad when people get pissed off. I don't feel safe with Muslims holding office in America. Mandani inspires Coptic and Islamic tees to wage war on the streets of America, screaming "Free Palestine." This is why I will never care about Gaza. Let's unpack this here. So, she assumes every Muslim is someone who's going to participate in political terrorism. Very odd. So, the guy who is working at Home Depot, guys driving Uber, your lab technician, your pharmacist, she just looks at them and she's shivering. She's deeply afraid, right? Mamdani is very progressive, very liberal. He does things that are actually I don't know if, can't say heretical, but things that are antithetical to the Sunnah, okay? So, you could criticize him for those progressive and liberal policies. He's not someone trying to hold up Sharia law, right? And there is no Muslim saying wage war. In fact, as I have shown over these past few days, it's been the far right. And people like Loomer calling for things to escalate and saying, Kumbaya is over, yada yada yada. So I find this a deep, rich irony. She says here, imagine caring about Gaza and falling for Islamic propaganda when this is Hamas, Hamas, Hamas is doing to hostages with the help and support of the Palestinian people who run cover for Hamas, Hamas. Every time I see someone cry about Gaza, a brain cell dies, then I mute them. So I just want to encapsulate, if nothing's really happening in Gaza, why aren't foreign journalists let in? Why have so many journalists died there? Why does Instagram and YouTube, especially YouTube, censor and take down the raw footage of what's going on over there? I had just on the community page a picture of a fallout where a little boy survived, and because I was responding to Andrew Wilson's terrible view on Gaza, and YouTube said they removed it for graphic content. So if everything is so lovey-dovey over there, why is it that it consistently violates the TOS? Think about that. Okay? So when you see starving kids, and other nations are seeing it as well, she's just like, why would you even care about that? So I want you to see, she doesn't care about harmed children, but she wants to act like she's a good, loving, decent person. Strange, isn't it? And then she says the anti is not real crowd will cry about fake stories about starvation in Gaza before they shed a tear for a homeless U.S. veteran. America first, LOL. So, a lot of poor people in America who are homeless also have mental illness and drug addiction, so there should be that. And a lot of veterans struggle with alcoholism and PTSD. Laura Loomer is a warmonger who wants to make more veterans. How? Because she wants war with Iran. Okay? She wants war with Iran, and what will that do? It will create more veterans and more disabled veterans and more veterans with PTSD. When a veteran has addiction and mental illness, they become homeless. So her policies actually create more homeless U.S. veterans. Okay? She's not America first. She wants to make people go and fight her people's wars. Okay? Now, Laura Looney has never really skipped a meal. Okay? She's never really faced that type of hunger. And she sees these really heartbreaking images and says that's all fake. That's interesting because the footage we see of Palestine, there's so many spots that there's no grocery stores, there's no Walmart, Burger King, there's barely any street vendors, they don't have CVS. Think about it. And she thinks, no, there's no starving. Nope, sorry. When that is empirically provable that there is. But she doesn't care about truth. She just has to demonize these helpless people. She says the military occupation of Gaza should have taken place on October 8th, would have saved us a lot of time and online bickering. There's no genocide in Gaza. So, if there wasn't a genocide in Gaza, why is her homeland, aka her fictional is not real homeland, why not let any journalist go there? Why not? That's true, right? She says, when the leftists try to make you feel bad over fake starvation in Gaza, ask them if they also cry for the children of cops deleted, we'll say, by Free Palestine protesters. So let's look at the ratio for a second here. How many Palestinian protesters have deleted cops on, in American soil? And then you compare that percentage to how many people are starving in Gaza. Clearly, the starvation in Gaza would be more. And it's possible to feel bad for the people in Gaza who are starving and for children who lose their dad, right? So she doesn't feel bad for pregnant women starving. She doesn't feel bad that babies don't have diapers or formula and their moms are starved so they can't make breast milk. She doesn't want that old 80-year-old granny to have some rice and beans, right? She's very heartless. She's fed. She's comfy. She's got money to inject her face with rounds and rounds of Botox. But she wants to help people not do anything about the famine over there. And it's a famine created through war, right? So she has to call it fake. She says it's a big lie. So, okay, let journalists in. Let journalists come and see and verify her claim. And then she says, then I would like my billions in tax dollars refunded, Cindy. Oh, she wants some billions of tax dollars refunded. Is that so? Anything about how America should not give tax dollars for is not real to wage that war and instead use it for homelessness? Very interesting. Again, she's very mad about the visas. Okay, she's upset that people are getting out and safe. She's super pissed at Tucker Carlson for starting to realize the truth about her homeland. And she says here, how is allowing for Islamic immigrants to come into the U.S. America First policy? Again, you have freedom of religion and freedom of association in America. Someone being a Muslim doesn't mean they can't come here. If you want to have religious purity tests, you're going to have to show how there's the Bill of Rights and a constitutional litmus test for that. So if you want to throw away the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, all right, go ahead and do that then. But don't say that's America first. That means you're reforming America into a new type of area, right? And then she says Muslims are pretending to be refugees. So, if we look at the history of where America has done regime change war, where they have created military bases, and the histories of Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, you can look at the Desert Storm, you can look at all kinds of stuff, the Arab Spring, and you really learn about the history of the Middle East, we'll see how deficient Laura Loomer is in knowledge, right? Hillary Clinton bragged about taking out Gaddafi. Things become apocalyptic when their governments fail and people flee, right? And that's the game the High Lords play, as they say. Lords as in feudalistic lords, right? She says, oh, the U.S. is full. But if it was her brethren, she'd be like, come on in, right? Again, using the word Islamic invaders. Someone's got to make a shirt that's like, invaders, invaders, invaders. Here, you can see more. Look at that. This is someone who's got some problem. Look at he's disabled. She's freaking out. She's like, oh my goodness, there's a disabled kid who won't be stuck in the trap we set for them. Oh my goodness, what will we do here? She's very resentful. Here we go down. Look at that. She spends quite a lot of time on making sure to not be confronted with what she supports. So muting the word Gaza. Notice that. Why does she want to escape that? If she says everything is fake, everything's a lie, why would you mute it? Think about it. Ooh, I remember this horrendous post. Stop trying to force me to care about Palestinians. America first. She wants America to be as heartless as her. Isn't that something? If you look through the Christian Bible, you will see some merciful things there. She wants Americans to see these little disabled kids and be like, hey, sorry. And her rhetoric works on some heartless people. But she won't win in the end, I don't believe. Okay? She says, not our problem. Oh, so is it our problem as American taxpayers, citizens, to give her favorite country billions to protect themselves? That's not our problem, right? Think about it. How is giving her favorite country billions of tax dollars before Americans, America first? Very strange, isn't it? Look at that. She says, no more posting videos begging people to care about the Palestinians. This is not our war, remember? Think about that. Don't feel bad for this guy who just lost his pregnant wife, or don't feel bad for these kids trapped under rubble. No. Tell me, does a religious person who has spirituality, the fear of God in them, talk this way? She's, I believe, childless. And I think there's old folk tales about how evil childless women can become later on in life. Because they don't have that softness in them. They don't have that mercy that you get usually when you give birth to a cute little baby and you realize the miracle of life. Okay? She thinks, oh no, don't try to dictate what is not real does to those Palestinian people. So what does she want? Shut up, Americans. Give me cash. Give us endless billions and we'll do whatever we want. Don't you dare ever tell us what to do with the gravy. Very fascinating, isn't it? She says here, who cares about Gaza? I thought you said you were America first. All you talk about is Gaza. Now, Elijah Schaffer, he hates Muslims. Okay? But he feels bad for the children. Elijah Schaffer is not a friend to Muslims. I've seen many of his posts. And here, you can see how Looney Loomer, she tries to boss all of the men around. Isn't that interesting? She tries to dominate so many right-wing influencers that are males. And yet, very few men have put her in her place. I find this to be quite telling. Okay. So here, what do we see? She's unapologetically anti-Islam. Okay? She says, you'll never get me to shed a tear for anyone in Gaza. So, this is the type of woman who, she's a Cruella de Vil, skinning those Dalmatian puppies. She has that Disney villain-esque energy to her. If you look at her face, she kind of does look like the villain in Sleeping Beauty, Snow White. You can see she's got that look about her. And I really do think that as a woman becomes more angry and sinister and pernicious, that they get those scary Sharpie eyebrows. They start to kind of look more like the classic imagery of a Wizard of Oz witch. You know, it's quite telling. I wonder what that is. Even though evil wears many masks, I truly believe that your spiritual energy inside of you comes out on your face like a vibrant mirror. It's really quite telling. And she says, "It never gave me to feel sad about the U.S. standing with is not real and the right to defend themselves against jihadis." So she has to label everyone as that word. I find it quite telling. If she was like, imagine like she's eating a sandwich and she has like her fries on the table. A seagull flies down, takes a fry. She smacks the seagull comes back, takes a fry. She's like, "Get out of here, you fucking jihadi." Like, she's the type of person to swat at someone, and when they defend themselves, she's like, "Ugh, are you trying to oppress me, you dumb jihadi?" You know, it's quite telling. I've really done a lot of introspection about these types of women and how they really don't like it when they get a taste of their own medicine. It's quite telling, isn't it? Now she talks about finish the job. So, a job. You have a goal. So it's their job to finish something that causes mass destruction. And again, you see how she wants to take out Iran. This is so important because she has that goal and she's not going to let it go. You can clearly see that. Her people want to take out Iran. Her best buddy, Satan Yahoo, has hated Iran for years. Okay? That will create more refugees. So I find it odd that she doesn't want refugees, but clearly that would create more destabilization. And, you know, it's strange that she doesn't realize that. But she has that sort of finish the job. But she's not putting on the uniform. She's not being a medic over there and seeing what's on the ground. She's got her lip gloss on, her hair did, she's got some new clothes, she's having some caviar, kicking it with other popular influencers, having some boba tea, and she's like, "Yeah, man, go die." On both sides, think about that. A warmongering woman who points her finger and says, "You, go dog, sick 'em. I will stay here in my air-conditioned home, and I will lap up in luxury, maybe go to the beach, have a mojito, and you go die in the sand. Go get some type of cancer from the ashes and the chemicals and the fallout. No, you go, dirty man. You serve me, dirty man. Go on. Shoo. Go die. Go on. Think about that. She loves to direct men to their doom. She's callous towards innocent children. Very telling, isn't it? And she's trying to keep the Hodge twins in check. Interesting. Very telling. Okay. See, not our war. Stop being Gaza first. Oh. If it's not our war, then why do we have to give her favorite people money? She loves to. I like how she's always bullying Elijah Schaffer. I just think it's funny how she just dominates these men and they don't like just say, "Hey, listen here, woman." They don't go full John Wayne and be like, "You sit down and go make me ribeye and some mashed potatoes." I don't care about Gaza at all. Okay. You're not going to get me to pretend to care either. So you can see the thuggery energy. This is what I'm trying to show you. When women get thug mode, like they want to act like they're about that life, they want to play the witch, the bruja, they want to masquerade as this sort of dictatorial, heartless, authoritarian, maniacal sociopath. But then, when they get some of that tenacity back, when the dog bites their toes, when someone comes out of the swamp and ankle bites them, they're like, "I'm a victim, save me." So she's very into provoking people. She likes to disturb. She says here, Islam doesn't allow for peace. It's really, really odd. Just how she looks at billions of Muslims and is like, none of you want peace. None of you do. None of you. And you're like, okay. There's plenty of people going about their lives, but she is pissed. Now, with the Greta Thunberg, what's interesting about that is she brought attention to how food isn't being let in. She used her fading notoriety to make this freedom flotilla and to show the world that, hey, don't forget about what's going on here. So I have some respect for that, Laura Loomer, obviously, she's like, no. And she's like, with zero evidence, contending that Greta Thunberg, the autistic Swedish girl, I believe she's from Sweden, right, is gonna go with Hamas and harm people. Like, this is... what is going on? Like, the sky is always falling with Laura Loomer, okay? She's deeply terrified. And I think that's also stems from a guilty consciousness, right? She says here, I don't want a single penny of my taxpayer money going toward aid for terrorists in Gaza. Well, you don't really get to decide that, And then she says, why can't the rich Arabs help out? There's Muslims all over the world. Indonesia, Malaysia. Islam is growing. MashaAllah tabarakallah. And there are lots of people who have been helping, but again, where the aid is going, only Allah knows. So here, she says, I don't give a shit about Gaza. Doesn't mean I don't put Israel first. Why is she having that forked tongue, that split identity? We know who she cares about. Why won't she be honest about that? And this Thomas Paine guy, he told her some salty truth right there, didn't he? So what did she say here? You get what you vote for. That type of rhetoric is important to use back at them. I just really hope that she can change when she gets older. Because her heart, I couldn't imagine having that in my chest. Where she says it's a lie that the humanitarian situation is bad. Think about that. I do wish Egypt could take in more people, but we know what happened to Egypt, which is they would be heavily targeted. And Egypt is an ancient nation that has survived quite a lot. And she would then turn her Saruman's eye toward Egypt, which is really sad. But if the Palestinians come to America, they'll be safer, right? Because she can't make Muslims less accepted in America as easily as she could in Egypt. Okay, how do I word that? So, her nation can murk people in Egypt and anywhere. The Middle East is like the playground for tyrants to just strike however they want, right? But, right now at least, if us Muslims in America, we can't just be drone strike by the Zios yet. Laura Loomer would probably love that, unfortunately. But if the Palestinians go to Egypt, her people can murk them easier than if they were able to come to America. So she wants the refugees to stay in countries that can be drone struck and don't have the military capacity to fight it back as much, right? That's what is important to understand here. So you can see just how much she's upset consistently over Gaza. And it should be just noted in the historical record where she stood. She wants to really warmonger quite a lot. And she doesn't really want to change her view. She's not really open. And her fear of the of the other is tense. And you can see how hatred arises. How people just don't get along. But she's not trying to create bridges. She's burning bridges. And this is important for the historical record, as I said. And she wants Trump to, like, turn it into this casino resort, right? And she's probably been a heavy influence on Trump trying to do real estate programs there. You can see here as well, Trump, I'm committed to buying and owning Gaza. That's absurd. That's really strange. You know, it's just really awkward how America would want to a land so far away. I mean, we have Puerto Rico and whatnot, but it doesn't really work like that, you know. And if the irony is, the Palestinians would become American citizens, would that protect them from people like her? It's really curious, isn't it? So again, she has quite a lot of hatred for Palestinians, for Muslims. She really wants Iran and Gaza to be taken out. Okay? So here, we come to the end of it. So let it be put in our minds where she stands. I'm sure many of you already know, but there's always going to be people who don't know. And that is the purpose of this video, is to educate us on who Trump is friends with. She is somebody who, for now, has some influence, and it's important to know what she's about, where she stands, and if someone is friends with her, what they stand for as well. Okay? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the innocent children. May there be peace in Palestine, and may they be able to rebuild their economy, and may the refugees from Palestine be able to have relaxation in their life and prosperity. Ameen.